Keto long term. Is it safe? Is it possible? Is it healthy? A lot of people have concerns and questions, so I'm going to answer some of the most common ones. Coming right up. So keto is getting very, very popular because people are getting results. But then there's also a lot of skeptics, and when the skeptics raise their voices, then people get concerned, they get worried, and they wonder, can I really trust this? Can I really do this long term? Because they're scaring people that if you keep this up, it's going to hurt you. So at first, the skeptics said, oh, it's ridiculous. Of course you can't lose fat by eating fat. And then they said, oops, I guess you can, because there was just so many people doing that. But then they said, oh, well, you can lose some fat, but it's not sustainable. And if it's sustainable, then at least it's not healthy. And that's kind of where everyone is today. We have the keto camp and the skeptic camp, and everyone agrees that yes, you will lose weight, but the skeptics say that, yeah, it's possible, but it's not sustainable. You can't keep it up. It's dangerous, and so on and so on. But is there any foundation? Is that a good argument? What are they basing that on? So basically, it's based on a fat phobia. And where did we get that? Where did that come from? Why are we so afraid of fat? Because fat's been around for as long as human has been around. And for the most part, we've probably eaten more saturated fat than we've eaten anything else. So we have demonized saturated fat and cholesterol. It's the first thing that shows up on food labels: calories, total fat, and saturated fat, as if those are the things that we need to avoid. So this fat phobia is based on a couple of really bad studies in the 1950s, where they just watched people, they made certain assumptions, and they decided that saturated fat and cholesterol was bad. Recent studies have shown that it is the processed fat, it's the man-made fats. So the reason people started noticing fat was when people got sick from eating margarine and shortening and processed fats, along with lots and lots of sugar. And this really started in the early 1900s, and it accelerated all the way through the 1900s. And nobody looked at the quality or type of fats, and that's where we got this fat phobia that is so ingrained now that nobody dares question it. Everyone says, ooh, if you propose eating bacon, you must surely be crazy. And it's like we're not really questioning, why would it be that bad? Okay? And it turns out it isn't, because most modern studies show that saturated fat is actually better. It's a really, really good fuel source. It's the polyunsaturated fats that create problems. And saturated fats improve the ratio of cholesterol, because it's not the total number that matters, it's the balance between the two. Total cholesterol to HDL of about 3:1, then you're doing perfectly fine. And the lower that ratio, the better you're doing, and saturated fats improve that ratio. But even though those old studies were from the 1950s and we've had decades to get better information, and we had better information, old ideas die hard, because once we get a feeling about something, then it's very, very hard to, and that's what I hear from a lot of people is, I've read this and I've read this and I tried it and I feel better, but I heard it for so long that fat is bad, so I'm just scared to eat it. And it's a fear, it's a phobia, it's founded on the wrong information, because as long as the fat is natural, it's perfectly okay. And then people say that carbs are the main source of energy, that if you don't eat carbs, you're starving yourself. And again, this is just not true. It has been the main source of energy for the last few hundred years, when we have increased our agriculture, we've increased the processing of grain, we've included bread in everything. But again, agriculture has only been around for 10,000 years, which is an incredibly short time compared to the time that you have been around as a human. So agriculture started 10,000 years ago, but also at that time, the grains were completely different. They had more protein, less carbohydrate, and people ate them whole. So even if we say that we've had grains for a while, we just haven't had them in the form that we're eating them today. And carbs are not the main source of energy because humans have two sources of energy, two primary sources. It's three if you include protein, but the two main sources are carbohydrates and fat. And the body will burn whichever one it has the most available. So if you feed it carbs, it'll burn carbs. If you feed it fat, it'll burn fat. It's as simple as that. So it depends on where humans have lived. It depends on what their lifestyle was. It depends on the time of the season, what was available at the time. Then they mention that the keto diet has no calorie restriction. And surely that must be a bad thing because we all know calories are bad. And again, we've decided that fat is bad, cholesterol is bad, calories are bad. Oh, don't eat avocado, it has too many calories. Don't eat salmon, it's too fatty, it has too many calories. Don't eat nuts, it has too many calories. Eat that little rice cake, eat this little fluffy processed sugary thing, it only has 100 calories per serving. Haven't we heard that over and over and over for the last 40 years? We've turned calories into the enemy, and it's not. It's what keeps us alive. For as long as life has existed on the planet, every species have started the day looking for calories. Okay? It's the thing that keeps us alive. The reason that it messes with us today is that we have processed them, we have changed them, we have introduced processed foods and sugars and processed carbs that are unnatural to our bodies. That's why we lose our ability to regulate hunger. So we shouldn't have a calorie restriction. When your body is healthy, when your body gets the type of food and the nutrients that it's designed for, your body knows how much to eat. The only reason it eats too much is you eat processed foods and you're insulin resistant. Then they say that it forces the body to burn fat. Again, as if that was a bad thing. There is no force about it because when carbs go really, really low, the body burns fat. So you could turn that argument around and say when carbs are really high, it forces the body to burn carbs because the carbs, high blood sugar will put a diabetic into a coma. Carbs are toxic. High blood sugar is one of the most dangerous things that you can have. So if you eat a lot of carbs, you force the body to burn carbs. Okay? It's a ridiculous argument. It's about balance and what has the body been doing for most of the time. And for most of the time, we have never ever had a lifestyle that allows us to develop insulin resistance. We've never had that many carbohydrates and sugars and processed carbs around. Never been around. So we know plenty about missing a few meals because we've done that for as long as we've been around. We had no defense against the abundance of carbohydrate. It forces the body to burn fat, and as a result, there is no deprivation or exercise. It's like you have to have calorie restriction, you have to suffer, you have to have pain, because otherwise you don't deserve to be slender. It's like this crazy mentality that we have forgotten what it's supposed to work like. We're supposed to feel happy. We're supposed to feel good. We're supposed to eat till we're full. We're supposed to know when we're full. Okay? But carbohydrates and insulin drive a fat storing mechanism that prevents us from using the fat, and therefore we don't know when we're full because our bodies tell us eat more, eat more, eat more, because I put all of my blood sugar in fat storage through insulin, and I can't get to it because the insulin is still high, so you got to eat something more. And that's the mechanism that turns off your ability to decide how much to eat. Humans are not supposed to be deprived. And of course, exercise, you shouldn't have to exercise to maintain your weight, but that doesn't mean you don't want to exercise, because like I talk about in many, many different videos, exercise is absolutely necessary to optimize your health. So you want to do that 5-6 days a week regardless, but it has really very little to do with losing weight. It is good for reversing insulin resistance, but you shouldn't have to force your body through exercise to lose weight. And then one of the most common arguments is that it's too extreme. And again, it's an opinion. It's like, surely fat is bad. Surely it's extreme to eat that few carbs. But when we call it extreme, we want to ask, extreme compared to what? Okay? If we go into a food store today, it has about 50,000 items on the shelves. How many of those items existed 10,000 years ago, or even 500 years ago? Okay? Hardly any. That's extreme. We have replaced our entire food supply with fake foods. We don't have access to real food from most regular food stores. That's extreme. Okay? When people say that it's too extreme to eat 30 grams of carbs, compared to what? 400 grams of carbs is extreme because your ancestors never ever saw that kind of carbs. Never. Even if they found a beehive and they ate the whole thing in one bite, they probably couldn't get that much. So most of the objections are based on emotional reactions to what we believe is true, and it doesn't have any solid foundation. It doesn't have any good explanation in physiology. And the best way to judge this is try it and see how it works. What you want to understand, though, is along the way, it's about quality of foods. So is it sustainable? Absolutely. Is it safe? Absolutely. Can it be done healthy? Absolutely. Does everyone have to do it? Is it the best possible diet for everybody? Not necessarily. If you like it, then do it. If you reverse your insulin resistance all the way, then I think most people can probably not have to be in ketosis. I think you should still be at low carb, because 400 grams of carbs a day is going to ruin your health, guaranteed. But even if you start eating a little bit of potato here and there, or some brown rice or something, if you have completely reversed your insulin resistance, then that might be okay. So we don't want to turn keto into a religion either. Okay? The reason it is so popular, and the reason it works so well, and the reason it's a fantastic idea for most people, is that most people are insulin resistant from decades of eating processed foods and too many carbs. So what you want to do, you want to listen to people who have clinical experience, who have actually worked with a lot of people over a long period of time, and who have some sort of education and some foundation in physiology, who understand insulin. Everyone else is pretty much just a self-proclaimed expert in one field or another. And what they're throwing around are opinions. And most of these opinions are based on emotions and what we've been told. And surely it can't be like that. Okay? So this channel is all about learning as much as possible about how the body really works, so that when you see that next article or you hear that next comment, then you have enough knowledge that you can make up your own mind. And you can say, yeah, that makes sense. That fits about 100 other pieces of good information I've heard. Or you can say, That doesn't make sense because it's just another piece thrown out there. So share this video with as many people as you can. Leave your comments below. I'll be happy to answer as many questions as I want. If you want additional videos on different topics, let me know. I'm going to try to cover as many different topics as possible and answer as many questions as possible. So thanks for watching.